Hello guys, and today I'm gonna be reviewing Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, and yeah, there's nothing more to say, just that the game in my opinion was a banger and one of the most fun games I ever played. So, spoiler warning for the entire game, because I'm gonna be spoiling a lot of stuff talking about it, and let's jump in. First of all, let's talk about graphics and performance. All I can say is in more recent or few newer titles, this is gonna be a more interesting topic. Right now, all I'm gonna say is the performance is good. I think the game runs well, and probably because it's an older title, most of the PC should be able to run it well. And graphics, I think at the worst case scenario, they're all right and they're not gonna be bothering you. Okay, let's jump into, I think, the most important part of the game, and that is gameplay. And all I can say is the gameplay is very smooth, it's very fun, it's fast, it's responsive, and if you could only fight without the mechanic called Zandatsu, hopefully I'm pronouncing it right, um, it would be quite, it would be alright, the gameplay would be alright, but the implementation of Zandatsu and being able to basically cut all of the buildings apart from things that kind of restrict you, and I think Zandatsu is an amazing addition to the game. Basically, it adds so many options and it's so sick where you can, if you have the full meter, of course, you can just walk up to the normal enemy and just slice them up. Like, usually, you think when you're playing the game, wow, you're literally swinging your sword and the enemy's taking like 30 hits and then just dies. Whereas in this game, you can just run up to the enemy, cut them in half, and run past them, take their fluids and heal. And I think Zandatsu is not just a cool mechanic, it's a really crucial mechanic that, in my opinion, the harder the difficulty you play on, the more important it is. Because if you cut an enemy in half and cut their vital point, you can take their electrolytes or whatever they're called, crush them and heal yourself up and max out your meter, so you could be able to cut in half weaker enemies again. And I think it's great. You can use this mechanic as well as to cut through buildings. Maybe there's enemies on top that are shooting you, so you just cut the building in half and they fall right into your hands. The game as well kind of makes their level design around that, so you would be able to, you need sometimes to cut down certain structures so the enemies would fall down and you would be able to reach them. The game as well has a lot of sub-weapons like grenades, rocket launchers that, in my opinion, I don't think they're that useful, but in certain moments, like on certain boss fights or mini bosses, you can really get a good use out of them. Yeah, but overall, sub weapons, they're kind of a cool little addition that if you know certain tricks with them, you can get a good use out of them. Otherwise, I would say in my first playthrough, I didn't even really touch them. But a more important gameplay mechanic is after you beat certain bosses, you can buy their weapons, and I think this is where you get the most fun out of, is you have 3 weapons that you can buy after a certain period into the game, and they're very unique, like super duper unique. One is more crown control, other is more combo heavy, the other is like really high damage in a single hit. And I think it's kind of sad, but you can kind of get around it, but it restricts combos, like, it restricts combos with multiple weapons because you need to re-equip them in a menu. But you kind of can do that, but it just makes the whole comboing process not that fun with multiple sub-weapons. But it's still sick. It's still really cool. Though I would say that I'm one of the players that doesn't really never really tried comboing with multiple sub weapons. I think it looks kind of complicated. It probably looks more complicated than it actually is, but you know, never tried it. But I think the actual weapons, they're really cool and fun. Like, so the sub weapons give much more variety to the already very good game, and it gives more playstyle options to the player, because depending on how you want to approach the situation, or how you want to, what kind of playstyle you want to pick, maybe crowd control, maybe high damage player, maybe you like your combos to be longer, it just gives more variety to the game, which is a big W in my eyes. By the way, if I haven't touched on it already, if I have, I will just cut this part out, but with Zandatsu, you can actually, after weakening certain spots on stronger and bigger enemies, you can cut them out, cut those parts out, so it would be easier to beat the boss or the mini boss or whatever it is. And I think the Zandatsu opens up so many possibilities that I think just for the actual gameplay alone of Zandatsu, using the cutting mechanic and just the actual gameplay, it would be worth it to just play this game. Even if you know already everything about this game, the story, the boss, everything, just for the gameplay alone, I think you should pick this game up and just play it. And I think because this is my first review, I probably I'm struggling to get the points across why this game is so goated, but just know the gameplay already puts this game at a very, very high rating. Hello, future me here. I forgot to talk about two things, so I'm gonna quickly go over them. First of all, this game has one flaw, and that is, in my opinion, it is too short. Like, I usually beat the game like 6-7 hours, I know, and I think that's too short for a game. And it's still goated, it's still great, but it is a tad bit too short. And second thing is the enemy variety. I think maybe there's not a lot of enemy variety, but I think because of the game's length, I think that isn't a problem. So that's all I wanted to say, and peace. But let's move on to another important point, in my opinion, when I play these games, and it's boss fights. And all I'm gonna say, just to not spoil my two previous videos where I talk more in depth about every boss fight, hopefully, but all I can say, all of the boss fights are really good, and the standard for a boss fight in this game is so high that two boss fights that, in my opinion, just are solid, like just good, they're at the bottom of my rankings always, because all of the boss fights are great, amazing, and I think the only maybe difference from maybe other games is the fact that these boss fights, they're not maybe really like technical, you know, they're no like Sekiro or Dark Souls bosses where you can really appreciate every movement detail, how natural, or maybe like, you know, Monster Hunter. I think these bosses are just, they get you hype. That's what the word I'm looking for. They get you hype, they get you in the zone, and after you beat them, you just feel like you had such a great time, and that's why they're good, and that's why they're fun. Like, I when I did my rankings for these bosses from worst to best, it was even kind of hard to say why one is better than the other, because I was basing those rankings on my feelings, because that's what these boss fights are good at, as making you they are good at making you feel hyped, they make you energized, you're just there for a good time when you fight them. Okay, and let's move to the last point of the review, and that is story. And basically all I'm gonna say is I didn't play a single Metal Gear Solid game, but I know that you can play this game without playing those. But what I realized after playing it for like doing like 6, 7 runs, I lost the count how many. In this game, the story doesn't really matter. And all I'm gonna say is your mission is to stop Senator Armstrong from achieving his plan. And that's your mission, and you're gonna have a lot of fun moments and memes along the way, you know? Like one of the bosses says, memes, DNA of the soul. That wasn't even close, by the way, but it's fine. So, this was a really bad review probably, but hopefully I'm gonna improve with each one. But you know, you have to start somewhere, and I'm giving this game a 10 out of 10. Now, all I can say is graphics and performance are good, solid, nothing to cry about, and the gameplay is what really puts, in my opinion, this game makes this game 10 out of 10, because, you know, the gameplay is king in my opinion, and it's one of the most fun games I ever played. And the gameplay, I always replay this game every year, and it's so goated, it's so good. And all I'm gonna say is, if you haven't played this game, even if you already know everything, when there is a discount, like I think you can pick it up for like 10 euros or something, go buy it and just play it, because you don't know the feeling that you get until you play it. And if it isn't for you, then at least you tried, you know? You haven't lost much. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next review. Peace.